call extension meeting to order. Time is 9 o'clock with the first order of business. Comments from the public related to items on the agenda.
Anybody online?
No.
No.
Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we'll go to,
Must be done.
next we'll go for the safety share with Tom Borchard.
It's kind of the cows have gone out of the barn already, but if you think about it, this cold weather that has just happened, we found out if our batteries are still good in the car. Because if they aren't good, they would stuck. I
Yeah,
have a granddaughter who's in how to drive now. She found that out. What do I do? You can do that.
what did you do?
And, you know, the other thing is, and it just, one thing leads to another. Hey, if you take and maintain your car, and that means you have the windshield washer fluid checked enough, because now we're going into a time where it's gonna get sloppy out, it's gonna get warm. You know, just maintenance, and then if you're not goofing around in cold weather, that means you should have the gloves and everything in the blankets in the car, but if you don't, you know, if you have it there and you don't use it, that's the way it should be. Because if you don't have it,
Don't
and
have a
you need
blanket
it.
in the car. I got gloves and a smartphone. No blanket. I'll get a blanket.
Well, it's one of those things where if you spend a little time ahead of time, and again, I said it, the college has left the bar already, it's been, the last 5 days, it's been below zero. Before that is when you have to come fall, take and maintain your vehicles and all that stuff. That goes the same with your snow blowers and cleaning equipment on it, so that's my thought of the day.
Those are
Any other
good thoughts.
comments?
Some good thoughts. I'm gonna get a blanket in my car.
There you go. Hearing none, we'll go on to the chair report. I'd just like to say that, the day-by-day shelter had good comments on your Smart program. They basically, really helped for them to get into housing. So it was good to hear that it's out in the community and we're,
And then they called that Covey group said, what's Rent Smart?
yeah.
Because they kept hearing it. So you might want to send something to them.
So I think they're gonna be contacting him.
And they even knew how.
And Todd, what I found interesting about it was that with that, they end up getting a certificate. We have property that we rent. And because of, as you go in and you do research about the people who are renting, you say, oh, wait a minute. And do I want to rent to this person? If they have that, it makes it that much easier in spite of their background.
Yeah, and we talk about that in RentSmart, like, if you have the certificate, talk about that with a landlord.
Yeah.
Include it with your application, like, talk about what you learned in spite of what's happened in the past. It's not the golden ticket, but it's gonna help in the eyes
It's
of a lot of
gonna help.
landlords, yeah.
Yeah.
So as a landlord looking at a problem that happened 8 or 12 months ago, that would be a red flag. You see they have the certificate since then, and that gives you some,
Some
Yeah,
confidence that
yeah.
they're gonna do it. We had somebody specifically who came up from Arkansas to run away from his history there, is living up in Washara County now, in a little town called Washara County. And he has all of that history coming with him, and in fact had some once he got up to Wisconsin. And you sit there and you say, I don't know. And historically, if you don't go about learning about how to change those methods without something specific behind you, it makes somebody who's a landlord say,
When you have a stack of applicants that don't have all those red flags, it makes all, yeah.
When you literally get 50 to 75 applicants when you put a house for rent, you know, so I
That's what
mean,
we hear, yeah.
you want to get a good fit for the house. If it's a 2-bedroom house, you can maybe go with a husband, a wife, and 2 children, but some of them got, 4 or 5 kids with 1 bathroom, it don't work,
yeah.
And you have to basically fit the house for the family, and you know, I look for steady employment, somebody that's been employed for a little bit, you know, or if they were evicted and they have, you know, they got hurt, medical, you know, but it takes a long time to get them out. You'll lose 6 to 8 months rent. So if you make a bad decision, you're looking at losing maybe $10,000. So, you know, you best try to get the best fit for the house that you can get. And right now, there's so many applicants, you can always get a pretty decent renter. I have, I mean, I've been renting houses for 50 years, so.
I'm brand spanking new in that business.
Not much. I've done that for a long time. Then we'll move on to UW Extension Program and Education Reports and Updates with Human Development and Relations with Todd Wenzel.
So we'll start off with Rent Smart, since we're already talking about it. There's a bunch of sheets, kind of our yearly reports from financial. If you want them, they're there. Just a quick statewide review that's put together by our statewide outreach specialist. But Rent Smart, still doing it online with the classes. Every month we do them online, different days of the week, different times of day. Still do the train the trainer, which is what the staff at JPA would have gone through. We do that each professional, literally nationwide, how to do Rent Smart. We do a lot of individuals in Wisconsin, but we have providers from Maine to Texas to California to Alaska that have gone through Rent Smart Train the Trainer. Right now, still doing it out at the prison, out there usually once a month. Had been doing it in the county jail, but the jail's been closed for a couple of months due to COVID. So I haven't been able to get back in there, but usually doing it about once a month in the jail also. I've been working with the social work staff at the Drug Abuse Correctional Center. On the other side of they are really interested in it, and I've finally been approved and fingerprinted and everything else to get in there. So we'll be doing Rent Smart in the Drug Abuse Center. NOVA Counseling down the road, the treatment facility, I go in there once every 3 months and do it once a month at the Pillars Adult and Family Shelter in Appleton. Even though it's out of Gamey County, sharing cross county lines. Katie Gellings does some stuff at the Boys and Girls Club to try to offset that. And scheduling at the Tiny House Village down the road. They reached out to us and some Foodwise staff, and Katie, Jake Lee, and I went down there one day. They had a real interest in what we can offer at Extension and what that's Rent Smart. So start doing it there. So a lot of Rent Smart. That's a lot of what I do. And so it's a good thing. So yeah, we see a lot of positive outcomes. The program review for Rent Smart, we had 154 Winnebago County residents get the certificate last year from the in-person classes, and then there were 15 from the online classes. So
How's that compared to 22 or 21 or?
I should know that. I don't know off the top of my
Did it
head.
feel like it was up to you or is it?
It's about the same.
About the same,
Yeah,
okay.
about the same. Yeah. The online, it might have gone down a little bit. But it's still usually somewhere between 115 and 200.
Okay, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
That earn a certificate, and that's, you know, whether it's in the prison or the jail or.
And is there a fee for this? Or is this
No,
free?
Rent Smart is-
Yeah.
Everything I do is free. Yeah, Rent Smart is free. I've done it in the alternative high schools. Like we do it lots of different places, so it varies from year to year who's taking it. Some of the feedback that we get from it, 100% of participants statewide, both online and in person, said it's going to help them keep housing in the future. 9 out of 10 said that if they moved into something safer, more affordable, or better quality. So like we see all the positive benefits in the follow-up surveys that people that have the Rent Smart certificate is out.
Have you seen changes? Like you have a Rent Smart program you teach,
Yes.
but then, you know, 5 years from the time you started teaching it, I'm assuming that really doesn't change.
Like the curriculum itself, or we update it, yeah, as like, especially, so the last module is all about the legal side of renting, like landlord tenant law. Some of that is updated, right? Because that changes not every year, but there are updates. We update So we do like budgeting activities, the numbers that were created 10 years ago, like you can't find a place to rent for $400 anymore, like all of it, we update it.
So you have. to
Every year,
maintain
yeah,
it,
we
it's
go
just
through
like
it.
a program.
Yeah, we go through and update the curriculum, add the curriculum, as things change, yeah, absolutely. The whole statewide team, that's just not me, you know, we got eight or 10 educators statewide that do Rent Smart, that are part of the Rent Smart team, so yeah, we're always looking at updating and adding new activities.
So it's a 6-time session. Does it like once a week for 6 weeks?
So when we do it online, usually it's one session a week,
Okay.
yeah, so sometimes it's 2 sessions a week, like maybe Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Friday, but we try and do it all within a month when we do the online stuff.
Okay.
A couple times a year, we'll do it Saturday mornings.
And if they miss a Monday morning or Monday, is it online so they can go back and,
So we don't record the sessions,
Oh,
but
okay.
there are online makeup quizzes. that
Okay.
You can take, you can miss up to 2 of the live sessions and take the makeup quizzes and get credit. When they're online, we do require that their cameras are on and we can see their face, like actually. Make sure. like, they get credit for attending.
are meetings supposed to be recorded?
I don't think we have to, we have.
Yeah, this is not a government, a public meeting. This is
Okay.
an educational program.
So yeah, it works out really well. I used to work a lot with Don Lord, who was the president of the apartment association. He's retired from that, but he would say the same thing about eviction, like it's expensive and it's long-term. It's like, yeah, $5,000 to $10,000 to evict someone. So we talk about like, how do you have that relationship with your landlord? So one, you as a tenant can avoid that, but also like when we have landlords take the class, like how do you make that selection process? You make sure you're getting.
Well, if you're like
Work out.
a new landlord, you have a house payment to make. So when that tenant don't make that rent payment, you gotta make that rent payment.
Yeah.
You know, so it cuts into your money, and then a lot of times they act like the landlord's the bad person. All you wanna do is a small business, you know, and you want to have a good relationship with your renter. I mean, I work with them, you know, if they don't have all my money, I'll take it in piecemeal. You know, if their car broke down and they had a $300-400 expense, but they can pay me in the middle of the month, I'll have to make a habit of it. I'm not a bank, you know, like I always tell them when they rent, I'm not a bank. You can talk to your mom, your dad, your friend, borrow the money from them. I don't want to be your loan officer, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we talk about that, those types of things, like if you develop and have a good relationship with your landlord up front, like they may be willing to work with you when something like that happens. Versus, yeah, you start making a habit of it, you don't communicate with your landlord. That's when bad things can happen, right? Yeah.
Do you ever hear any bad stories about particular landlords over and over again that you might want to, do you warn people about those? Probably every other month, I get some kind of comment
I mean, I'll say
from
yes. but-
Midwest Realty. That seems to be, now that's not a small landlord, that's a huge corporation, but there are a
Yeah,
lot of complaints up.
There are. Yes. I'm not gonna name names, but yes.
I named a name.
Uh-oh.
Well, they should be ashamed of themselves.
I think those, like, I did one house, I put $11,000 in it, 6 months later, you wouldn't recognize it,
Oh, no.
you know? So it just happens time after time, when you got 30-40 rentals, like my dad and I one time had 20, you were constantly, when they moved out, replacing the carpet should last, rental, great carpet should last 7 years.
Yeah,
You'd get 1 or 2 years out of it, you know, and it would be all stained and, you know, they would clean fish in the kitchen, fish scales all over, you know. It's like, you wouldn't believe the, you know, one lady, the whole tub was full of like the Kotex things, I don't know where he showered, or, cause the whole bathtub was full of garbage from, you know, female products. You know, another one had probably 15 appliances in the basement, they were gonna take them apart and sell them for scrap, but they never did, you know, and those are all things that I had to get rid of, you know? And it's like, sometimes it's a two-way street, you know, I mean, if I got a good tenant, I will make sure they, you know, the house will always be livable.
yeah.
And when they move in, I would live there. But if they don't take care of it, I'm not gonna go in there every year and basically put new carpet in because, you know,
Yeah.
they don't take care of it and the kids spill stuff all over and, you know, like I tell them, the carpet was basically in good shape when you moved in. do like I do, get Stanley steamer and have them clean it. You know, you got it dirty, I didn't get it dirty.
Yeah.
Moving on,
Well,
yeah.
one more quick question.
Absolutely.
I'm reading this, but it doesn't tell me when.
I can get, if you want a flyer for when we do classes.
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, I'll get it. to you. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. Reentry ready. So reentry ready is something we started just a couple of years ago, working with individuals in state prisons and county jails, financial education. It actually came from my work at Oshkosh Correctional. They, those that were going to be released had lots of questions, financial questions, and the staff there does not have the answers or the time to do it, so they contacted me. So we developed Reentry Ready, which has become part of our financial security curriculum. It was Katie Gillings does it at Allegheny County Jail. I do it at Oshkosh Correctional. I have a colleague in Milwaukee County that does it in the county jail down there, and we're quickly expanding it. So it's a financial literacy to help guys typically within 6 months of release. Just how do you start over? Like, what do you do from day one? How do you make sure you're successful? Because the recidivism rate in Wisconsin, whether it's rearrest or reconviction, or reincarceration, it's around 50% of those that are released within 3 years, they're back inside. So how can we cut down on that, right? Because it not only saves us money as taxpayers, but it helps them succeed in life too. So that's kind of how all that came about. So I do it at Oshkosh Correctional about every other month or so.
You go out there and do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We presented to the chancellor, UW-Madison chancellor. She had a request to hear from Extension back in November. Every institute selected a program, and for human development relationships, it was this, Reentry Ready. Chancellor, on what we do in correctional facilities. We were supposed to do the same thing for the provost on Friday, but that was canceled. Snowstorm, so that is still going to be rescheduled, but like there is real interest at the university level, on the statewide level and the nationwide level, because we do have a large incarcerated population in the state. They will be released and they need the same resources to succeed and hopefully avoid reincarceration.
And what does PIOC stand for?
So persons in our care, that is the
Oh,
term
okay.
that Department of Corrections uses
Oh, that's nice.
for individuals that are incarcerated. The term prisoner or inmate is not the term.
Okay.
It's PIO, persons in our care, yeah.
I raised a couple of PIOCs, that's for sure.
We have 2 at home right now, we have not self-sufficient yet. That's 2 and 8, yeah, they're definitely in our.
That's a lot of care.
I don't know, even as adults, I wonder if they're capable.
But again, for Reentry Ready, last year I had 35 individuals out at Oshkosh Correctional that took it. Ranging from guys that are like 18 that have already been incarcerated for a couple of years. The guys that have been inside for 20 plus years. Where do you even begin? Day one, post-release, like how do you, like the world has changed so much in 20 years, right? Like we talk about like use a smartphone app to look at your bank account, like that, that has no meaning to them, right? So
Yeah.
how do you even start? So we try and talk about those things. Some of the quotes from the guys that I worked with out there, when we talk about Reentry Ready, it's, you know, I plan to use everything I learned in some way. It taught me about everyday life situations. And from the last time that I taught out there, it was a younger guy, but I haven't yet lived my life, and I plan on doing everything to do good and stay free. Like you're in your early 20s and you've already been incarcerated for 2 years. That is really difficult to come back from.
Yeah.
So it's fun. Not fun to go into prison, but like I really enjoy going. Because
They're receptive.
they are really engaged, they're really receptive. They want to learn. So civil lives
How, Karen introduced me to Lincoln Hills.
here.
Do you do anything with those?
Was just thinking that, was wondering if, okay, but is it I can't tell where these counties are. Is it available up there where Lincoln Hills
I
is?
don't know that we have any, but no, I don't think we do. I don't think we have an educator.
Okay.
So Katie Gellings and I have actually done it via Zoom for Dodge Correctional. They contacted our educator in Dodge County, and she doesn't do financial, but we adapted it and we did a couple of Zoom classes for Dodge Correctional. So there is the possibility to do it online. It's not as good as in person, but it's possible, yeah. Right. 36 state correctional facilities in Wisconsin, like, we can't be in all of them, but we can
Right.
do what we can.
And that includes places like Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake
Yes.
with kids. Okay.
Because it's important that kids start to.
Yeah.
learn this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is really starting by.
So we talked to Amy about.
Yeah, we really do.
How do they get released from prison? They have no money and they have no place to go, so where do they go?
Where do you go? Yeah, so if you are in a DOC facility, Department of Corrections facility, like, you're typically released back to the county where you were convicted in. So like, there are guys at Oshkosh Correctional, yes, some of them come back in Winnebago or Allegheny. But it can be, Racine County or Taylor County, or there are guys in there from other states because of the interstate compacts. Like right now, we're doing reentry ready in there right now. There's a guy that's gonna be released in Illinois. Like, I can try and help, but I don't know the answers, right? And I know we've had
So
some.
when you're released, do you walk out with nothing, not a buck to your name?
Sometimes, yes. So there is pre-release planning. That's who I work with out there, the social work staff. Typically within 6 months to a year, you've got hopefully a pretty decent plan. You start taking some of the classes, you get involved in some of the post-release programs that exist, but not everyone does. There's not enough time or enough staff to be able to do it. So there are situations where guys are literally let out the door.
It's not like you can save money in prison because you're getting paid pennies for doing whatever job you're doing.
So if you don't have a support network at home, you don't have a place to go back to, that's what leads to recidivism, reincarceration. And there's no chance for success in that situation, which ends up costing all of us money, right? The state of Wisconsin, we spend more money per capita on reincarceration than any state in the nation. We spend more money per capita. So for every one of us, it's like $72 per person, which is far and away the most of any state. So we reconvict and reincarcerate on an extreme level in Wisconsin.
And when you say 72%, is that on,
$72
excuse me, $72? Is that on our side?
on our side,
Okay.
on our side, yeah.
And
It's, we
that
spend,
is per prisoner.
no, so we spend, should have the number. I think the number, it's well over $100 million spent per year on reincarceration. So and we're not making a huge impact yet, but like, if we can even save a small amount of that from what we do, that's a big deal.
We had a teacher at the elementary school who was the reading teacher. And he said, if I am able to touch one child, I have done my job.
And it's the same thing that we try to do. Yeah, like, we can help someone get the rent smart certificate and set themselves up for success, right? Or we can help someone pre-release, or the financial coaching that we do, or anything else that we do, right? We can't touch all 5 million people in the state, but if we can touch a few and make a few successes, like, that's the point of what we do.
And so all these classes are available online. And if an institution, part of DOC has the wherewithal for able to put their PIOCs on, in front of the computer, they could learn this stuff.
They could, yes, like we are, like that would be me or some of my other colleagues, like we don't necessarily have the capacity to do that at all institutions, but here and there potentially, yes.
Okay.
We wish we could be everywhere. The other things, planning ahead, so this is, again, a newer curriculum, but helping individuals plan for end of life, whether it's end of life care, whether it's finances, planning for retirement. Again, Katie Gellings and I do this,
No, fine,
on
fine, yeah.
a local basis. We do it on a statewide basis. It's 7 sessions. They get a workbook, like how do you start to plan finances? How do you get your things in order? How do you make everything from funeral arrangements to powers of attorney? All the things that we don't like to think about, but we need to think about. Have some plans. It's not just for, we've had people that are in their 40s that want to start planning, which is a good thing, right? But how do you get things in order? Loved ones know what those things are, know what you want to do. We say it's, you're leaving, this is probably the best gift that you could leave someone, right? So they know what your wishes are, know how you access someone's retirement account or someone's bank account, just the really simple things that you don't even think about, like what's your password, or who do I contact? All of those things. I'm going to be doing that at Lutheran Social Services here in Oshkosh next month. Youth Forward Wisconsin, so this is the child savings account that we've been working on for a while. There's actually a state bill coming up again, hopefully to the floor, if it makes it out of committee, to start a state-supported child savings account for every child born in or adopted in Wisconsin. They would get $25. Not a huge amount, but it didn't have great support in the legislature last time. We'll see what happens this time. But on our end of things, I just had a Zoom on Tuesday with staff from the Community Foundation, Oshkosh Community Foundation, United Way, about how could we potentially start a local child and savings account program for kids in our area. Everyone's at capacity, especially nonprofits and community groups. They don't necessarily have the funding to do it right now, but there's genuine interest still in our area to start child savings accounts. Encouraging financial conversations. So this is training that we do for frontline staff professionals, social workers, case managers. Again, we do this on a regional level. We kind of cut back like once a year because we've kind of trained everyone in the area, whether it's at OCAP or the counties or wherever it might be, but helping them understand how do you have a financial conversation? How do you talk to someone about their finances, their bills? How do you make a budget? Things that are tough to talk about. So that's a professional training that we do. On the family side of things, family engagements and relationships, I just do a couple of small things, still engaged with the fatherhood group there, focus on fathers, an online series specifically for fathers, to learn some education, to meet and talk, because fatherhood needs are unique needs. A lot of what we do is geared either more towards family education or mother education. There's not a whole lot of fatherhood stuff, so we do that. Still go to State Street Center downtown at the Oshkosh Bagash building. Go in there once a month, do some financial education there. A lot of stuff going on. We will be going back to Reentry Ready. We're going to submit a proposal for our national professional organization for this fall to do Reentry Ready presentation. My colleagues, again, Katie Gellings in Outagamie County, our state specialist on campus, and I were supposed to present at a national conference in New Orleans back in November, and I contacted hand, foot, and mouth disease for my son who got it at daycare, so I wasn't able to go, but they were able to go, and they had a really positive response.
Cowboys were always dealing with hoof and mouth.
Yeah, hoof and mouth, yeah, like it's extremely rare to get it as an adult, but it happens, so.
You're special.
He brought it home from daycare. Yeah, so I didn't get to go to New Orleans, but hopefully be able to do it at a national conference this fall. But yeah, just spread the word of all the cool stuff we do. We manage some extension.
Any other questions for Todd?
The conference that you went to, the national group, How many people were there did you address? Was it several hundred?
I think the conference overall had about 700 attendees. It was a financial educator conference. The presentation they did, I think they said there were about 30 individuals in the room, but all of it is available, all of it was recorded. So anybody that was registered for the conference can go in and watch it. Like I went back and watched the recording.
I thought that was pretty cool that you would, be invited to be one of the speakers.
Yeah, it was a really unique opportunity, because there are not a lot of, no one has financial education to use in correctional facilities. It's not a lot, it's not common yet. I mean, so there is genuine interest, again, across the country, like there is with Rent-Smart, like, how can we help this population succeed?
So some states don't have that.
Most
Wow.
places do not. Yeah,
Really?
there was nothing here, there was nothing in Wisconsin. Not nothing, but really nothing like what we are starting to do with reentry registry. And it's a huge population. In the United States, we incarcerate at an enormous rate compared to any other country. So yeah, there's a huge population that could use that, hopefully succeed, right?
Bravo, Todd.
Avoid it again.
Yeah,
Good job.
you
You know,
make us
that-
proud.
I had a neighbor that runs a small business and it's hard for them when people, everything's going to cards, you know? And like she said, you know, if I spend $50 at Todd's shop and Todd spends it at Karen's shop, it's still $50. But if I charge $50 at Todd's shop, Todd's only got $48.50. And then he charges $48.50 at your shop, now you're down another $1.25. Pretty soon that $50 is gone.
Yeah.
And nobody got nothing other than a credit card company. But we're a society going away from cash, you know?
Is that the same for debit cards and credit cards?
No, debit
No.
cards, they don't, but
Cards,
credit card, that's processing fee from 3 to 5%. And like she was trying to explain, you know, because people, they add on 3% if you use a credit card. But she was trying to explain to them that it costs her on average of $1,800 a month to take a credit card. Well, that's, if you're selling tennis shoes, you know, that's 10 pair of tennis shoes that you lost
Yeah,
for credit card fees. So somebody has to pay it. Either it comes out of her pocket, or if you walk in there with $180 cash, she spends $180. It's always $180. Eventually that $180 will be down to nothing because it's all ended up in fees. You know, and a lot of people don't realize that, especially in small businesses, you know, they just, if you write a check, it doesn't cost nothing. If you use a debit card, it doesn't cost nothing. But if you use a MasterCard, it costs them 3 to 5% to take your transaction, you know, and I always try to small businesses to pay cash, you know, or check, because I know what cuts into their bottom line.
I've got a couple of questions. Do you work at all with human services?
A little bit, yes, and there's potentially more that we might work together. We have done a few things with human services, not a whole lot. They know what we do. I actually just had a request from them just the other day that they needed the newest Rent-Smart flag. So yeah, they know what we do and expect.
They know about you. How about health?
Health department.
Yeah.
Not
and-
me, not so much. When we were doing more on evictions, the health department was interested in that because there's a connection there, public health and evictions and lack of housing. But not as much as I have with human services.
Okay,
And
And-
Kay, just to add, Katie Jagley has been building strong relationships with the health department. And Katie and Todd are aware of each other's programming, so they can, there's a communication loop there. Yeah.
and that's what I'm looking for, for me, what I'm finding in being on the county board is the amount of education that I'm getting. And also the way to go about communicating. And it's just because I'm on a few of these, in these areas, I'm wanting to see that working together. And did you used to be at the Goodwill in Menasha? Who was the person years and years and?
well, he's not that old.
25
No,
years ago.
No, not 25 years ago. No, absolutely.
Who
not, no.
was doing financial?
So Goodwill still does financial. It used to be called Fisk. Now it's
That's it.
Financial and Debt Solutions. They do, like financial counseling where they will work with someone and their credit card company and their bank, and we reduce payments, get them to take less.
Okay.
They can work directly with creditors. That's not what we do, so they can help you file for bankruptcy, like those types of things. That,
All right.
yeah, you're in a really serious
Thank you.
situation.
I knew that they did
Yeah,
something like that.
and we have a good
it was-
relationship with them too. Yeah, they have taken RunSmart. We've trained some of the staff at Goodwill about RunSmart. But yeah, we work.
But I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, here are no more questions. We'll move on to administration department report, which is,
Yeah, so one, I'm just gonna, just include in my report, it's just an update that Mia, asked me to share. And, you also will, next time you check your email, you have an email from me with, some of the things that I want to share with Mia. We've got a lot of different illnesses, going around, and me being the supervisor of so many, it's not like one thing. It's like a little bit of everything all over, and, you know, everybody went to their holidays and everybody
Just like
traded.
open mouth disease.
Everybody traded what they had, and then they all come back and it's colder than Dickens, so they're, everybody's sharing in close quarters and things like that, so.
Well, why not be generous?
Right, yes, yes. So Mia's daughter has been, under the weather, and based on the last conversation I had with Mia, she has felt she's being so polite and sharing with Mia herself, so Mia's not feeling good. So, Mia wanted me to share, about she is, part of a team that's offering, a virtual grant writing basics workshop. So this is a similar workshop that she has, offered before. There's a new set of, sessions that are coming. The details are in the email, and she's been working with Robin. Robin is gonna get the flyer and the registration link finished up by tomorrow. So if you do have, would like to pass it along, we can get that information to you. So this is, the intent of this workshop is for, nonprofit leaders or nonprofit, members of nonprofit organizations, businesses or small businesses, local government leaders that have either no or very limited. This starts at a very basic level with grants, just the basics of how do grants work, how, in most cases, what are some, how do you develop a proposal, and it goes through just the basics, and then it touches briefly on some like resources of where would you go to look for grants, and then provide that to just at least give someone a base knowledge. So there's going to be 2 sessions that'll be offered in the last week of February, on the Monday the 26th and Wednesday the 28th. One is going to be in the evening. The Monday one will be in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m. And then the other will be a Wednesday, will be in the morning from 9 to 11. Again, all those details are in the email. But it's something that the team has been doing, and it's been very well received. So they like to offer some cycles, and then in some cases they provide some opportunity to also maybe refer individuals to different extension resources, or within communities there might be like, hey, now you're to this point. Now you may want to touch base with, this organization or this group. And it could be small grants. This is not necessarily like, multi-million-dollar grants. This might be those small ones to get, certain projects or initiatives started, and build that expertise or that knowledge base so that, these organizations that are so vital and businesses that are so vital to our communities can continue to grow and focus on their mission, that they, of whatever their intended mission is. So that's from Mia. You have more detailed information in your inbox, and if you wish to share it, I can have Robin, when she has either the link or the flyer done, to send it to this group, and just FYI.
please.
Not sure if it's gonna hit, so this may be one thing, that if the timing works, if someone would be willing to, promote it, or mention it at the county board, this would be something I think would be relevant to, a number of individuals. I'm looking at the calendar, not sure if, where the workshops are but, we'll get you the flyer and then you can make that determination. All right, so now to my report, a couple other things. So facilities, just some updates right now at this very moment. Robin and Amy are participating with individuals from parks and are continuing to learn the software platform that we're going to use for building online reservations. And they're going through and trying to, they're really doing that initial setup piece. And, Parks has some different pieces and they have a reservation component where it might include fees, or that does include fees in many cases. We don't at this point, so setting it up and how it's going to be used, and then also how the internal backdoor, so individuals can reserve these meeting rooms for committee meetings and so forth. So that's moving forward and moving along. One of the other things that we had a little bit of an adventure. Now, when I say we, I'm speaking most everyone else but me, because I had the opportunity to work in other offices, but be thankful that you don't see your breath right now, because the boiler did go out, the boiler parts, and I think that's one of those things that it was taxed and decided that it was tired. But the facilities team did the best that they can to get the parts and get them, work with whoever needed to get it
Yeah,
fixed. And
Parks had to move their meeting over to Sunnyview.
yes. So just, it's one of those things that you don't know until you put the stress on, and probably, July, when, we're in our third day of 90 degrees, we'll probably find out if there's something with the AC unit, but that's just life. Just a couple of staff and other department updates. So I had announced at our last meeting, Madison Potratz is, took on a new role within the Ag Institute as a communication specialist. I'm working with
Does that
HR.
mean she's no longer with us?
Pardon?
Does that mean she's no longer with us?
She is no longer with us. So she's with Extension. So that's one of those things that as a colleague, it's a good move for her, and combines her education experience and talent and all of that. So it's good for her, bad for us from the standpoint that there is a vacancy. I'm working with HR and the program manager to get all of the pre-posting pieces, and hope to have it posted probably in early February. It'll take a little bit to get things. So we should have someone by the growing season. Thankfully, the landscape conference with the Landscape Contractors Association, Caitlin Bricko in Outagamie County is able to provide some expertise. Our office is the fiscal agent for the event, which is not a real big issue, because it's something that Amy has done, that we've done here in-house. So it will have minimal impact on those things. The other piece is, if for some reason we find the right candidate and their start date is delayed a little bit, there is a much more, over the last 2 years, there's been a very robust system put in place so that all residents of the state of Wisconsin have access to horticulture knowledge. Now, it doesn't trump having a horticulture educator here who can interact and also provide that one-on-one education, and also some of those larger, classes and other pieces. But it can fill a gap for a period of time so that if individuals, you came and they're like, hey, I want to know about this insect, with my rose bushes. Okay. Todd and I, maybe not, maybe Todd, I don't know.
I've jumped in a couple times.
Yeah, so sometimes it's like, hey, we can kind of help you a little bit, but then we recognize you really need to click on this link and send an email to this, and get some expert resources. So there is that ability to do that. And so it's good. It's one of those things that it highlights both the importance of having our local educators and the connections and the relationships. And it shows like where the connection and the importance of some of those state resources and our connection to the state that it can provide. We can still have, it's not like, oh, sorry, we can't help you, we don't have someone. We at least can provide a level of customer service that's pretty good quality and good response. But we're also striving towards having someone with that face to face. So that is, so I will keep you in the loop. And at the appropriate time, when we start to look at interviews, I'll poll to see if there's someone who wants to be part of that. The other thing that I think is kind of fun, so tomorrow afternoon, are at least those that are not sick. We are going to just take a couple hours in the afternoon, and we're going to celebrate kind of our accomplishments for last year and just have a New Year's kickoff and a staff development time, have a little bit of fun together as a group. This past calendar year was a really good year. A lot of growth, a lot of things happening. I'm not going to share everything because on the agenda is my state of the office address to the group, so I don't want to spoil anything if anybody wants to read, but
We have to stand and clap as you come in, like they do for the
Yes.
president.
You have to shake hands on both sides of the aisle.
I'll let you determine that, Todd. So anyway, it's just something that is going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to as we get the chance to just celebrate some time together. And the last thing that I have, just wanted to kind of this is a new development. For some of you, may have, I don't know if you're aware, but starting last year, somewhere in July of last year, was the kickoff to the UW-Madison's 175th year of existence. So UW-Madison has been around for 175 years. And in addition to some kickoff events and some things that were going on campus, also recognizing that there is impact and reach of the University of Wisconsin-Madison throughout the entire state. So there is a state tour that has been going on through this past year, and there's been tour stops throughout different parts of Wisconsin. On March 29th or 30th, one of those dates, and I'll definitely have more information, there is going to be a tour stop in the greater Appleton area. So the exact locations and things are still coming together, but there is going to be a celebration and an extension. Area 10 extension is going to have an opportunity to participate in that celebration and plan some type of an event or some type of, I'm calling it a thing right now because it doesn't, we have some creativity and stuff that either highlights a program, showcases a partnership, celebrates the people that we work with, or all of the above. So we're kind of working on planning. Definitely something that we will share once we have a lot more information for anybody that wants to participate and for however they're able. It's part of a day-long event. There are other statewide outreach groups or divisions or programs as part of UW-Madison that'll be involved, plus the Alumni Association is also heavily involved because the Appleton area is a pretty strong UW-Madison alumni grouping, or a lot of individuals reside or work in the area, so also celebrating that. So kind of exciting, but also kind of hey, now we have to plan something and pull something off, and the chancellor's going to be there, and we want to make sure we put our best foot forward and celebrate some aspect of extension and specifically extension in Area 10, which could be Waupaca, Outagamie, or Winnebago counties. So,
Any questions for Chris?
At our last supervisors meeting, one of the things that jumped out at me, one of the supervisors said he didn't know anything about RedSmart. And I went, you gotta be kidding me. Well, I'm fortunate enough, I come here and after 6 years, I've kind of beat into my head that I kind of know something about it. But also, I think, Steve, you said there's a chance there might be 16
You call it more members,
new county board
That's a
members
potential.
coming in. And then I had a chance for reflection as I drove home. And I said, there's probably stuff I don't know about other departments too. Would it be appropriate that presentations made to the board sometime after everybody's seated, kind of giving a general overview for these people and even the existing ones of what's being offered? Because there's so many things being offered.
Yeah.
And not that you have to know them all, but know where I gotta go to find out.
Yeah.
So based on past experience, so there's a couple things. One, I think, this group, that we do, within this meeting, we do like an extension 101. It'll probably be after either, the April or the May meeting after the new committee is formed and established meeting dates. If there is anything supervisor wise, it would, the county clerk's office would organize that. Which I think is appropriate, right, to provide that some of that structure leadership. I think it would be great that there would be an opportunity for at least each department to have just a general overview of what are some of the things that we do and what makes us different, or why a supervisor might want to visit our website or stop by our office and give us a call. So I would support that, and I'm not sure what that format would look like, whether it would be part of a, part of a special orders meeting, or if it would be part of a separate standalone, kind of an orientation type thing. That is something I'm willing to send a note. I could send a note to our clerk and just see what there might be some, thoughts and or willing to brainstorm a little bit, because I think it is valuable. And I agree with you, by being part of department head meetings and being, now that I'm in like the finishing up year 5, I've learned or figured out what the other departments are doing, but that's been like 5 years of, so having like hey, here's an introduction to each would be, I could see that where that would be very helpful.
And when that supervisor said it, right away I said, well, it's obvious to me, but reality is there's stuff that I don't know stuff about the airport or human services and all that. And again, there's so much stuff, and getting that word out to the public. This is what your taxes go for, people. Don't complain about the taxes going up. Where is your dollar being spent and what you're doing? And I thought it was really great, this teaching the teacher type stuff. Because look at, one person is actually 2, 4, 6, 8. I mean, and that's fantastic.
Well, and to add to that, as I'm gonna say a freshman supervisor, I'm going to say, please don't do it in April, May, or
Right.
potentially
Yeah.
June is where you're starting to say, maybe now I can start to see my way through all of this
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. Well, and thinking about that, I mean, it doesn't always work, but the extension, the UW Extension's Local Government Center, in partnership with what the Wisconsin Counties Association, provide new supervisor. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be new supervisor. It can be a refresher for any supervisor, but any county supervisor can, attend workshops, and there's in-person, plus there are some Zooms, and that's like the basics. Like, what is the role and some of the statutes behind, county board, I provide, or we, provide, okay, what does our department do to our committee of jurisdiction? I hear your point that, like, figure out how to go to meetings and how to log in on your iPad and all of those things first, and then figure out what the, what the nitty gritty of each one, or at least not the nitty gritty, the basics of what every department would do.
Well, and when you're first there, lo and behold, if you don't have Andy Phillips coming and talking to you about You know what? Let the committees be where the discussion happens and when it comes to the board. When you've got the tour at the beginning of May and you see all of the, well, you see a half of all of the departments in that, it is potentially really quite overwhelming. Because then you've got to figure out how to use your iPad too. And so having that little bit of space is of value.
You know, rather than have every department make, because I mean, that would take forever with all the departments. I might talk to Julie about this, whether department heads could put together just a bullet point or one sentence, you know, that what you're doing. The grandparents raising grandkids, the 4-H, the Red Smart, just, and maybe even add a website link so that if somebody's interested, and they would all be compiled in a booklet. And so when you know, new and returning supervisors would say, okay, here's all the stuff we're doing, and here's how I can find out about it. I think that makes a lot more sense than trying to come and present, because if you're gonna present, I would say, nobody gets to ask questions. If you have a question, write it down, it'll be answered, you know, later, because it'll take forever to go through the questions.
You're right, it could be, and, Karen, I will say from a department head role standpoint, and I had the opportunity to do this, we did this in Wapaka County 2 years ago, where, you know, as many of the departments that we had an opportunity to introduce ourselves and give like the quick bullet points. Individuals may not have remembered my name, but they at least recognized my face and knew that I was, you know, so when I was in a meeting or, you know, county board meeting or sitting in, it's like, it wasn't, who is that guy? Like, should they even be here? It was like, oh yeah, that's that guy. I can't remember his name. You know, so it's also, there's also a part of building, so this is also from an extension standpoint, we are relationship based, totally. So, I'm only speaking from my desire and the importance that I feel of starting to build relationships from the start. And, if there's a way to do both, great. Maybe not at the same time, but there would be, you know, to be able to do, you know, those two pieces, even if they're at different times, would be appreciated. So I'm just sharing my, you know, my perspective as well. I mean, it's like, you know, we've seen each other at least once a month for the last 2 years, rough, you know, give and take. And so, you know, we've had that opportunity. At least if somebody recognizes my face and like, oh yeah, they're a person. No, they're a person that does a thing. Is beneficial, even if they don't remember the name or the actual department or what extension does, at least provides an opportunity for conversation at some point. So,
you know, I know when I first got on, I made it a point to go to every committee meeting, introduce myself to the director, and get contact numbers if I had questions. And I think every new supervisor, it would be to their advantage to go to every committee meeting. You get to know all the staff that are there, you get to see how the meetings are run, but it's time consuming, and a lot of people don't have, I mean, I was retired, and newly retired, I had all kinds of time. Now my time isn't quite as free as it once was.
You're still retired.
That's so retired. But, that was how I basically, you know, I wanted to know all the directors, I wanted the directors to know me. I wanted to have contact information in case I did get questions from citizens.
Sure.
That I would have an idea where I'm gonna get the information to give them. And, you know, I had a good, for the highway department, the airport, the parks, I worked with them for 24 years. I never worked with human services, I didn't work with extension, I had no idea what any of the departments did, land and water. So I had a lot to learn there, but, you know, eventually you do a little bit of networking and, you know, I got the contact information. Any other questions?
And part of it is a person's, an individual's responsibility. We can take a horse to water, we can't make it drink. So comes back to part of it is absolutely my responsibility.
Well, it's like I told everybody that Todd was giving a presentation today on RentSmart. We had, the whole county board was there. How many did you see here today wanting to learn about RentSmart?
Yeah.
There was nobody on Zoom, or there ain't nobody in the back.
Nope.
So it was interesting for 5 minutes, but not interesting enough to come on Zoom or to drive here and ask
I
them
will
any
say on
questions.
Tuesday night, you said tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, and it was actually Thursday.
Thursday.
So they all showed up on Wednesday and you weren't, there's nothing going on.
You probably would have had a look to see what time the meeting was. It was on Thursday. But, any other questions for Chris?
Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah, these are all
for
great
everything.
programs.
They really are, and it is a case of getting out into the world and letting everybody know that these are available, at which point it then becomes their choice.
Next, we'll go on announcements for UW Division of Extension Education Steering Committee updates. I think
I've got it.
you got it.
Yeah. And Chris, I suspect you know about this. I called up Sarah on
Sarah Thompson?
Tuesday. No, Sarah Diedrich Castor,
Oh, okay.
who is the WCA connection between the UW Extension, this group that meets that's more state related. So it's the WCA working with Extension and how that's evolving. I spoke with her on Tuesday, I believe, and I asked her to please email me the conversation that we had. The subcommittee held its last meeting in September and finished its work on the guiding principles. Now, that was that meeting in September. From there, we were asked to please, because nothing had been formulated, to please not speak a great deal about this. And I said, wait a minute, we're talking 6 months later. I need some information. I keep on going and saying, I haven't heard anything. So the guiding principles were shared with Mark O'Connell to present to Extension Dean Carl Martin. So that was the step that came out of that September meeting. Due to scheduling conflicts and canceled meetings on both sides, Mark finally had the opportunity today, which was Tuesday or the 16th, to meet with Carl. I have not seen Mark since the meeting, so I do not know the outcome. Assuming the outcome was positive, we will get the steering committee together to discuss the work of the subcommittee on the contract to date. Now, this contract is between the extension people and the WCA, and that is supposed to happen in 2024. The aim has been to have any modifications in place for the contract of 2024. So there is the update from the person who I have been in contact with, who's a part of the WCA.
Any questions for Supervisor Ryan?
So it would be nice, once again, for you guys to be able to have this contract in place by the end of this year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
shoot, maybe you'll double your income or not.
Yeah, and I think something that's been discussed is that in other states is that a group such as, or this subgroup will work through the big points of the agreement on a 3-year basis, on a whatever basis, and that is like the agreement. And then I work with each individual county to get it signed because it has the, dollars and things like that. But it's broader as opposed to, all of us AEDs, working on finer points and going back and forth with this should be a shall and this should be a thou, all those fun things. So that's possible. That has been discussed, so that would be nice. We still have our current contract process, and one of the pieces is trying to say, how can we make this just how can we make it more efficient, communicate more effectively?
More efficient and more to the time we're living in. Apparently, this has not been something that the WCA and UW Extension has done for years. And so it's working through all of that to get to a point where they are able to address this every 3 to 5 years and make it current.
Thanks for the information.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll move on to updates at the county board meeting. Will you get us a flyer or
Yeah.
something so we have
Yep.
the dates and times so we can?
Robin, once things are done, Robin will send you an email with either a link or the flyer or both.
Sounds good. Comments from committee members? Anybody got any comments?
Yes, please. I'm not going to be at the next committee meeting. I will do my best to be online for it because I find that I am being really wonderfully educated,
Yeah.
and the people that I meet and know are gems. I mean, y'all are the jewels in, no, I don't have a crown, but I am learning so much, and I thank each and every one of you for my education. So I will not be at the next meeting, but I will be on the phone, or I'll have my laptop with me.
Oh, good, thanks.
Chris, does every state in the union have an extension? Or are there's some that just don't?
No, every state and a number of our territories have land grant institutions. And the land grant institution is where extension comes from or originates. Now, that extension, or whether you call it extension service or whatever it might be, will look different in some of the states or the territories, but there is a presence. So there are 3 land grant acts. So the first land grant is 1865. So the first land grant is providing for what we would, Michigan State, UW-Madison, Minnesota, Iowa State, those universities. In 1890, there was a second land grant that provided federal funds support for what we would call our HBCUs, our historically Black colleges and universities. So mostly in the South, but not exclusively, so that then they would be able to have extension programs. And then the most recent is 1990. So the 1990 land grant was for our Native American colleges and universities. And Wisconsin has 3 land grant universities. So we have UW-Madison, and then in 1990, the Menominee Tribal College in Menominee Nation was granted land grant status, and then also Le Coudray. So there's a over by Hayward. So there are opportunities for extension partnerships, but they also have their own outreach that they do based on that. So just to give you an example of how it may look differently in each of the states. I mean, Alaska has a 4-H program. I know the director of the extension service in Hawaii. He didn't have any openings for me, so at the time I chatted with
They
him.
have a spare bed.
Yeah. So it does look a little differently, but there is a presence across the nation.
Thank you.
And to go to that, another one of the reasons why this WCA UW Extension Committee was formed was because there are any number of counties in our state that are not finding the need for it. They're finding the expense of it, the county expense of it, such that they're saying, we don't want it. And that is, again, trying to start to engage those counties in our state. And you're talking about the Black universities. I was recently hearing about a fellow called Booker T. Washington, who started a school down in Alabama. Is it Tuskegee? And it was an old church building that was falling to pieces so that he could start to educate the Black people who were just coming out of slavery.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, these little gems that come out of listening, maybe? Listening and not forgetting.
Any other questions?
No, it's not questions, it's comments by committee members.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I do have. On the news this morning, on every news break, there was the thing about, Brown County and other I guess all the counties, maybe, we're doing a one-day counting of homeless starting next Wednesday, overnight Thursday. And they mentioned 2 other counties that were looking for volunteers. Are we doing, and I don't know if this is a question for Extension, Human Services, Board of Health, I don't know who covers this, but are we doing a count of,
I can answer that. I
Okay.
know all about that. So the point in time count, is federally mandated
okay,
by Housing and Urban Development. It happens in January and July. It's the same date all across the country.
okay,
It's typically run by, local housing coalitions. So it's not run by the county.
oh,
It's run by the housing coalition. So in Oshkosh, Fond du Lac County, Green Lake County, it's through the Winnebago Housing Coalition.
okay,
Nina, Menasha, Appleton, Allegheny County, it's the Fox Cities Housing Coalition. So it's, I've done it before. It usually starts at 11 p.m. and there
runs 24
are,
hours.
yes and no.
Oh,
So like
that's what the
the-
news said.
So like it's a team of 4 individuals. You go out, you have a specific geographic area, like whether it's downtown Appleton or it's Nina. I've done one in Nina before. And you go out, you physically look for people that are homeless. And it's both in January and in July. Unfortunately, the date in July is always during EAA. So we
Oh.
never get an accurate count in Oshkosh because that is such an upside down week that there are people in tents everywhere, right? Like and campers, that's just the way it is. But yeah, that's a national, that's by HUD. It's every January and every July. Yeah, I've done it and it's eye-opening, right?
Yeah.
Like I have my team, we found homeless individuals
In January.
at 12:30 in the middle of the night on Jan. Yeah. It's not uncommon, yeah.
Okay, so it is being done in every county.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's everywhere.
All right.
Yeah.
Then I have a question. There was a statewide pay cut for state workers that we discussed last fall. And then there was some discussion that it might be reinstated. Did you get your money back?
So there was never a pay cut.
Oh, I thought it was a pay
So there was
cut.
never a pay cut. In the current and the next year's biannual budgets that include the biennium. The budget passed by the legislature and signed by the governor included, for all state employees, included a 4% increase beginning on July 1 of 2023, and then another 2% increase, effective July 1 of 2024. In order for those to be in effect, there is a joint committee on employee relations that needs to meet to approve those. In September, they met and approved all of the raises for UW, or not, for all state employees except for UW, University of Wisconsin employees that are eligible. So therefore, there were no pay increases. There were no increases, but there was no cut.
Well,
So our
if
current-
there's,
Right.
okay, if cost
So-
of living has gone up this many percent,
Right.
you're actually worse off, okay?
Right, so, in late December, there was a negotiated agreement between, Assembly and Senate leaders and representatives of the Board of Regents. And there was a negotiated agreement. That agreement was accepted after some back and forth, by the Board of Regents. And the committee met shortly after to enable our pay, enable those raises. So on January 11th, was the first paycheck that showed the pay increase that reflective of our paychecks and the calculated back pay, going back to July 1 of 2023.
That
That is
was,
good.
they had to reassign them DEI,
And then,
and that was.
yep, that was part of the negotiated agreement was, putting a cap on hiring or expansion of certain, administrative and DI related positions and, the conversion or the refocus of some existing positions to be student centered in, other areas. So no reductions, there were nobody lost their, there was no job reductions.
Were 32 of them reassigned to different.
Yes.
So that there was basically, from
Yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion, there was 32 people that were moved.
Yes,
And that was part of the
Yep.
agreement. If you didn't agree to, they didn't agree to that, you were never gonna get a raise.
correct. And another key piece is if anybody does go through and read, extension is actually called out in a positive way, recognizing that a number of the roles are partnership related and therefore funding there are external and other government partners. So the administrative cap, there are exceptions for UW or for extension roles because in many cases they are grant funded or are partner funded or a part of our collaborative efforts. So that was called out, and so I think it was positive to recognize that we don't necessarily fit in quite exactly how everybody else does. Another significant part of the agreement that we probably won't see, or maybe not as much, is there were also a number of building projects, so physical building projects that were being held up as well. And the legislative committees were not giving approval on those. And they include the demolition of a site on UW Eau Claire campus that was basically a environmental and physical hazard that needed to be cleaned up, but without the approval of the funds. So there's a couple of other places, and there's a new engineering building that has been in the works on the UW Madison campus that has strong donations from partners, and that was being held up, that like most of the money was fundraised there needed to be a commitment from the UW system, and that was being held up, which then held up the process of the building, which probably is actually gonna end up costing money because in construction, that means things. But if anybody realizes, and I think that, Tom, this kind of goes to that earlier conversation we were having on buildings, engineering has the concepts and the needs to teach and learn about engineering has changed so much that even though the current building may still be functional as a building, it's not functional as an engineering teaching center because of all of the changes since it was built. And I want to think that building is 50, in the
late 60s.
Yes. So I mean, the building also isn't like, oh, we just built that 2 years ago, 10 years ago. So that was also a key piece that was part of the broader piece. And I realize some of that might not be of interest, but I'm trying to give you the whole package of how, yes, Todd and I and other colleagues were impacted, and there's the whole university system was impacted as well, in some major ways.
Well, I'm glad you have your money.
Yeah.
And the last thing I was gonna say is, growing up as a child, most mothers didn't work. Mothers stayed home, and my mother hosted I think every month, a homemakers club. This is what I knew about extension. They ran these homemakers clubs where you learned all kinds of things. And if you had some soil or water you wanted tested, you scooped it out and sent it to the extension office. That's everything I knew about extension. And I took that into adulthood, I know, so there's a lot. Imagine that there are plenty of people sitting on the board who don't have, who don't, or those who might be coming in, don't have a clue what extension is. Homemakers Club, which doesn't exist anymore, I'm sure, and you have your quilters group, right?
There is still HCE present. The relationship, the direct, it's more of a partner or an indirect relationship with Extension. There still is connections, but it's not quite as closely tied,
Okay.
as it used to be, or what you might be familiar with,
Yeah.
or recall, so.
Okay, that's the end of my comments from committee members. Here comes our safety guy.
Todd hit a key word that's been bothering me lately, mandated. When somebody mandates something, does money come with it?
Sometimes,
Every housing coalition in the country has to do point in time count. I don't know what the restrictions on funding would be, but everywhere has to do a point in time.
Well, because I've heard it many times, the sheriff department was mandated that. They rescue everybody on Lake Winnebago.
okay, American Red Cross is mandated to provide blood in disasters. It's an unfunded mandate. It was mandated by Congress, I don't know, 100 and some, 200 years ago. There's no money for it, but the American Red Cross has a mandate to provide blood.
And what happens if they don't?
They have to.
What happens if they don't? We had a discussion last night at the supervisor, that's a different meeting. It was on ARPA about barricades for Nina Menashe. And they're all concerned about cars coming through and running down. And just in my head, I go, well, then don't have the rate. If you're really that concerned about that, don't spend all this money, because no matter how much money you spend, you're still not gonna make it 100% sure it ain't gonna happen. But are we gonna start living our lives like that? But that goes back to things I've heard with the sheriff's department where things are mandated, but I question, okay, if there's a mandate, does it come with money?
There's funded mandates and unfunded mandates.
I didn't know.
Well, see, we're into education. here.
Oh,
I'm gonna give you a certificate and everything.
how can you do that? How can you take and put a cap on spending? And then just say all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have to, now that comes where the department heads may have to make a cut, because you have only so much money, you have only so much manpower, and what are you going to do? Now, if you can do it without affecting it now, does that mean you're overstaffed? There's all sorts of things that come into here that I don't want to get into, because there's no real good answers to it. But that answers my question, funded and unfunded.
Any other comments?
Yeah, sure, and to address that, I sit and think about Norway and the North Sea. And they have about 75% of an individual's income goes to the state. And everything is provided for. Now, where did they get the money? It's called the North Sea oil. And so the North Sea oil gives their money to the state of Norway, or to the country of Norway, and they are able then to provide everything.
Well, I also heard where it was either Finland or Norway or something pays 38% in income tax. And they said, well, United States pays 8% and we all complain about it. They pay 38% and nobody complains about it. Why is that?
Because they have healthcare,
Everything's
free
provided.
healthcare,
Everything.
free education. Yeah.
But then there's no free lunch for
A
that
year.
either.
A woman gets a year off paid for maternity leave.
And
Well,
that's
but-
because of the North Sea oil.
Well, and there are things that aren't perfect, because the healthcare, it gets to a certain age, you don't get transplants or anything like that. It's not a free lunch, and there are problems with the system. But again, they have people not complaining because they're paying all this, but they don't pay anything else.
Yeah.
Well, how are you gonna win? Because we want everything. You don't have time for this. I'm gonna,
But I'm learning, Tom.
oh, well, we can go have coffee and learn.
Let's get to our next meeting. Our next meeting will be February 15th. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,